Oliver from Rugby League, in my opinion, here, joined today by a very special guest, Jacob Smillie. How are you today, man?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How about you?
Yeah, man, I'm doing good, doing good. One very important question to kick us off here
Yeah,
today.
yeah, go on then.
Which FIFA is the best?
I don't know, like if you want to go for like old school, I used to like FIFA 05 and then obviously 07 were pretty good as well. But if we're talking about graphics and gameplay, maybe my favourite was like FIFA 13. But then
Okay.
since then, everything's just like, you get these different coloured cards and stuff, and then you think you've got a good team, you don't go on for about a couple of weeks, and then you just see some next like purple card that's like worth more. So I've just lost interest in that now, I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, I had FIFA 07, and that was my childhood one, I guess, up
Yeah,
until, well, my first year of high school is when FIFA 14 came out. And I
yeah.
wasn't too big a football fan, but then my mates got the game and they started talking about it and they started supporting Premier League clubs. So then I got onto it and started playing
Yeah.
FIFA as well. And I've
Who was your
gotten every
team?
one. I don't want to say because I had a look at your Facebook and I know who you support, and I don't want to say who I support.
Liverpool.
Uh, Maybe.
It's not good.
Uh,
I'm gonna have to convert you. You have to change it real quick.
what to United? Nah, I'm good.
It's
Anyway,
so,
yeah. Anyway, I think we can both agree though. A few years ago, FIFA was probably at its prime. You said FIFA 13. Again, FIFA
yeah,
14 is the one where I really started getting into it. So it's around that sort of era. And I don't know about you, but growing up, I used to watch like your KSIs and
yeah, yeah,
Major
yeah,
Shores and that.
yeah, stuff like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it's a shame though. We're touching on that. Like, there's not a lot of rugby games, is there? Like compared to like your footballs, your rugby unions and stuff like that. It'd be good to have like a yearly game, but like obviously you were saying previously before that there's not a lot of like interest in it really, is there? So
Nah, unfortunately, funnily enough, I was actually playing the latest game before we did this interview, and it came out in 2017. So that's 4
yeah,
years
yeah,
ago. And I did it. I mean, I can say this now because it was ages ago, but at the start of 2020, I got in contact with someone with True Blue, who are
oh
the
yeah,
developers of the sort of the Australian sporting games. And I was like, oh, is there anything in the works? And they said, got to be honest, not at the moment. There was an AFL game in the works, which has since come out, and a couple of cricket
yeah,
games, but nothing rugby league. And last year, there was this screenshot floating around. Someone had emailed,
oh yeah,
air
yeah. I
quotes
saw that.
here, the NRL and asked if a new game was coming out, and they received a reply saying, yeah, there's a new game coming out, we've got a new developer and there's going to be an ultimate team. And then a couple of the YouTubers, the rugby league
Yeah,
gaming YouTubers, were like, oh, well, this is confirmed. And I mean, nothing's come of that,
nothing's been done
so
since then.
nah.
Yeah, it'd have been good to be on like a game or so it'd be pretty good, man. But yeah, like the thing is with that though, like you said, it comes out maybe once every 3 years. So
Yeah,
the players that are coming in, they might not even be on the game. Do you know what I mean? So it's pretty hard for them as well to establish themselves. So yeah, it's a real shame.
exactly. And each year, I mean, it's customizable where people can upload updated rosters,
Yeah, yeah.
created players, and update the jerseys. But I mean, honestly,
Not
it's
the same, is it?
nowhere near the same, man. There'll be in the next couple of years. There'll probably be another one. They'll whether it's
You
the current
think?
developer or someone, yeah. Because interest will come back. I think
Yeah,
at least over here, they'll be interested in a new game eventually, because
yeah,
people will
definitely.
forget. The big problem with the other ones is that the company who makes them, they obviously don't have a budget of like an EA or a 2K,
Yeah,
so they develop the game and it's not great.
it's not
So,
great.
and then people complain about it. I mean, the
Yeah.
game's fine. You can have fun with it, but yeah, we'll
There's
see.
only so much you can do in it. Like you do maybe one season at career mode and that's it. You
Yeah.
can't really do much else, can you? Let's be honest. Like,
Yeah, I guess that's why a lot of people want an ultimate team or something like that. But yeah,
then again, though,
I
would
don't know.
that compete with your Maddens, your NBAs, your FIFAs? You think that'd compete?
No.
I don't know.
Well, the thing is too, I see people saying, "Oh, EA or NBA or 2K should pick up the game. Let's be honest, it's not. Rugby league's big, probably in Auckland,
Yeah,
east coast of Australia,
yeah,
and north of England, as you would know. So,
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, there's not as big a. You're not going to make
It's
as
not
much
big as
money
it.
from a rugby league game. So
I think if
yeah,
you look at Union, it's much bigger in it. Like you've got England, like the southern area, bits of the north. Then you've got what you've Japan. It's going to Japan,
yeah,
America, Australia, New Zealand, France.
yeah,
You know, so many places, and even your seven circuits, you've got like Germany, you've got France, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, even Jamaica sevens as well, which I've been a part of as well. Like they've like it's a lot popular in Jamaica as well. So the game's just growing in rugby union. Like it's just global, isn't it? Really.
Well, you know what? As a nice little segue, we might as well touch on your union stint. You actually represented Jamaica, as you just alluded to
Yeah, yeah.
there. Tell us a bit about that experience and how that came about.
Yeah, it was a good experience. So I ended up getting my first cap for the 15s team. So we ended up going to Bermuda and played them in a friendly. So it
Yeah,
was a good experience overall. There was a lot of like, it was obviously there was about 10 to 15, 10 of us, I'd say, from over in the UK. And then like the Jamaicans, we had the other like the 10 or 15 of Jamaicans. So we all met up for the first time and stuff. And it was really good. We got our own hotel and stuff like that. And then managed to get the food, managed to get obviously free food and stuff like that. So it was pretty good to be fair. So like we was there for about 3 days. So it was kind of hard to like gel and obviously like develop the skills. So I was one of the only players that was signed to a pro team at the time. So it was just obviously I was trying to obviously try and get like try and develop like some sort of like plays and stuff and some sort of skill set so like we could like be a good side, you know what I mean? Like try and get a bit of experience in there. But like the thing is with Bermuda, they were like training for what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So they was already fully like ready for it. Whereas with us, we only had like a few days. So that's the main reason why we lost. And also there was like in my opinion, like we should have started some players that was on the bench as well. So that could have been like a no factor of doing it. So, but it is what it is. It was a really good experience, and like I'm glad I was a part of it. So yeah, it was really good.
yeah. So you were obviously in a rugby union set up for a bit there, as you said. You represented
Yeah, yeah.
Jamaica in the 15s. How did you then end up converting to rugby league?
So funnily enough, I was at Doncaster Knights Academy while I was with Jamaica. And then I played a few rugby sevens games for Jamaica as well. So that
Yeah,
was helped my highlights out and stuff like that. So I was at the Knights, and then I scored about on top of my head, I don't even know. The first game I scored 4 tries. And then overall, I'd say maybe about 20 tries in total for the season. And then I wanted to obviously try and push on to the first team and stuff. So I thought I'll have a better opportunity getting the first team because Halifax were interested at the time. So I felt to myself like, obviously, I wanted to swerve over to there because I feel like I'd have a better opportunity of having like a look at in the first team. So when I went there, I ended up doing really well. I had really enjoyed it. I had chances, obviously, with the first team. I made my debut with them. So I'm really glad I made the switch because like it just opened up a bit more opportunities and like it was just a bit more like I had chances to obviously train with the first team. I trained at Doncaster. I trained a few times at first team there, but like with Halifax, it was just more often as well. So
yeah,
it was really good experience.
yeah. Well, after Halifax, a stint at Bradford. How was that?
Yeah. It was pretty good to be fair. It was all right. I just the thing is with Bradford, it was close to home as well, which was good. But like the thing is with COVID as well, that kind of
Yeah,
like made it hard as well. But I just felt like I left before COVID, to be honest with you, because I didn't feel like I was getting the opportunities that I wanted to get, and obviously I wanted to try and obviously push on to be the first team, and staying there may not have like got me to where I needed to be. So I decided to part ways, and we mutually agreed on that. And then before lockdown, that happened literally just before like the pandemic happened. So like a week before, like the whole place shut down. So in that time, I just obviously just started training and stuff, and I managed to get a look in at Swinton, and I got an opportunity there.
yeah. Well, we'll talk about Swinton now. You wouldn't actually go on to play, a championship game with them before you
Yeah,
parted ways, but you were also for the second half of last year and the start of this year. At least when I initially messaged you, would have been back in January. I think you were recovering from, I believe, a relatively serious injury. Take us through that.
to be honest with you, It was first, well, I got died. They said it was sorry, they said it was a torn meniscus. So
Right.
what we did then is then we're underloaded for like so long, and then say about 3-4 weeks down the line, we had an MRI scan that said it was tendonitis. So as you know, tendonitis isn't as serious as meniscus tear, which is a good thing. So I had to just try and like I wanted to like take my time and try and obviously recover 100%. I didn't want to rush back. So like I just obviously tried just doing the right things, and like now obviously I've left the club and stuff, like mutual left the club, obviously because I've got an opportunity which I don't want to like I'm not announcing as of yet, but like I ended up getting my own physio team, and then we just worked, man. So like the first week we just focused on getting my strength back, and then the next week just plyometrics like jumps and stuff, and then after that when we just worked on just running and stuff, and now like I'm back to normal. Now I'm starting to lift heavier again, and I'm just feeling really good. So it's just a positive step in the right direction.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear, man. Now, obviously, we're not going to touch, what's coming in the future for you. You know what's coming, and we'll all find out later on. I
Yeah,
do want to know about the departure, not only from Swinton, but from rugby league too.
yeah.
How much was that influenced by this coming opportunity? And how much was it influenced, I guess, by honestly just being done with the game of rugby league? And if so, why did you feel that way?
Yeah, to be honest with you, my mum's always told me like never turn an opportunity and always like be open to about always be open to like numerous opportunities. So like when I got this offer, like it was just a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I didn't really want to turn it down. So like, and also with rugby league as well, I really do. I love the sport and stuff, but I just felt like I felt obviously I wanted to obviously win stuff. I wanted to play as every player wants to do. Like play 100 games for your team, win stuff. But like I've been in the game for 4 years now. I managed to make my first team debut. I managed to represent like Jamaica rugby union, so I'm happy like with what I've done. And I felt like it was just this time now, just try and like put my athletic ability to the test. You know what I mean? And try and work on this opportunity, and then just try and be like obviously the best athlete I could possibly be. And I felt like this was the perfect time because I'm 22 years old now, so I didn't want to leave it too late. I didn't want to leave it till I'm about 28, 29, and it's too late. Do you know what I mean? I want to try and obviously do it now that I'm young and try and make a better life. Like, try and, like, obviously, when I'm 36, I want to be able to say, like, I've retired and then that's it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've now left, obviously,
Yeah.
and it seems to me, just from our discussions off camera as well, and this is something that I think we both wanted to talk about, I guess possibly one of the reasons influencing your decision in the end may have been, I guess we'll call it the current state of rugby league in the
Yeah.
UK. As someone from Australia who's, watched Super League, watched a bit of Championship, interviewed numerous players from over in the UK. Yeah, the vibe I sort of get is that maybe the game over there is not necessarily reaching its full potential, let's say. And I want to ask you about that because in the discussion we did have, you seem fairly passionate about this topic. So, yeah, why do you believe Super League or rugby league in the UK currently isn't reaching the heights that it could be? And what can they do to maybe get towards that benchmark?
To be honest with you, I just think it's like they've got the talent. They've got so many good players. Like you've like John Bateman, he went to the NRL, he ripped it up there. Put one of the best second rowers. Really nice guy as well. And then obviously you've got other players. You've got Regan Grace. You've got stuff like that. So I just feel like they need to just advertise it now. Just proper advertise and like go down the social media avenues and like just smash on them platforms and stuff and just like promote the game basically because if you're looking at other sports, so I know football is just like a global sport, but if you look over there, like you can see that their players have already got a brand outside of the game. Do you know what I mean? So you look at, for example, Cristiano Ronaldo, for example, he's got his CR7 brand.
Yeah.
You look at like people like Michael Richards. When he's finished, he's got his brand right there, Michael Richards. That's his name. Then he can go into like broadcasting and stuff like that. So I just feel like some of the players now need to just like try and make themselves marketable. Like I really saw what Chris Rodlinski was saying. He was saying the same thing about trying to be like marketable as a player. And like if you look at like maybe your NBA players, you like your people like that, they'll like be posting stuff on the training, you know what I mean, posting what they're doing. and like just try to build that like sporting environment on their social media platforms. And I feel like some rugby players lack that, and some do it, but some lack that. So I feel like if a lot of them like tried focusing on like improving their brand, I feel like the game will be much bigger, because then what you'll get is like, if people like, for example, if you go and score 3 tries over the weekend, you'll walk into us and you'll be like a superstar. Do you know what I mean? If you're promoting yourself in that right place, but then you've also got to think like, what it's a northern sport, so it's not going to be as big as football. I'm not saying it's going to be as big as football, but what we're trying to do is just raise the profile of the game and just make it a bit bigger than what it is. And that's because social media is massive, as you know, millions of people are on it. So if you're like, if someone's got like a class full length try and stuff and that's posted, someone might not even like rugby, but they'll see that and they'll think like, wow, like look at the athleticism on this guy, and then that's what's going to cause the interest. You know what I mean? So that's one of the reasons I definitely feel like a lot of the players need to try and create that brand. So at least when they finish playing as well, they've got that brand, and then like they can do stuff with it. Do you know what I mean? They can start making their own money off of it, start making the business out of it. So when they retire, they may not have to go into normal work, and they might get the opportunity to just like go into like, do something with their self, or like, be their own brand.
Yeah, and you know what? I am starting to see that a lot with players in the NRL specifically. Obviously, the game is bigger over here, and we do sort of see our players with that superstar status and that
Yeah,
aura about them. But there are players I'm seeing, for example, Chad Townsend, current Sharks halfback, headed to the Cowboys
yeah,
next year, got
100%,
his own podcast. I believe he's got his own beer brand as well now.
yeah.
Yeah, there are players taking steps to do stuff. And there's also as well, I guess we're seeing a bit of a return of the character, quote unquote, over here in the NRL. You got your Brandon Smiths, your Jerome Luais, your Brian
Yeah,
To'os, who are lively, colourful characters and have that personality about them. And
yeah,
I'm seeing it a little bit in the UK too. It's starting off. You're probably the person who's doing it best, and we'll get into it now. Your social
absolutely.
media game. I mean, it's been great. You've got your own Facebook page, which you guys can go and like now. I believe it's Jacob Smillie,
Yeah,
uh,
Smiley, yeah.
Jay Smiley, and also
Yeah,
your YouTube channel of the same name, where you've been posting
yeah, same,
vlogs,
yeah.
updating people about your rehabilitation lately, and you've been uploading highlights of your career, and
Yeah,
I believe answering people's questions. And
yeah.
I'm keen to see where that goes for you as well. And you've got
I've
your
been a bit like off with that recently, because obviously I'm
yeah,
just planning on obviously working on my opportunity. But
yeah.
once obviously that's out in the open and stuff, obviously I'll start posting more. But recently it's just getting my head down and working really.
Yeah, but the content's still all there for people to go
Oh
and
yeah.
check out, and it'll be returning in the future. Are
Then
you launching a podcast soon as well, or was that in the
it's in the work. It's in the
yeah,
work. This was like early like development. So
yeah,
it's just I'm still trying to think of what I'm doing with that market. So it's gonna take a long time. I'm just trying to think what's the best way I can. What can I do with that name? Do you know what I mean? It might not be
yeah,
a podcast. It might be something else. But it's just in the development stages right about now.
yeah,
But as you were saying with the NRL players, like I've spoken to Brian a few times, and he's got a really good character about him. I actually like found out more about him watching one of the documentaries on the NRL.
yeah,
Yeah, and I ended up reaching out to him through that. This was like before I was in the grand final, like a few months before the grand final. And he's a really nice guy, but also with that as well, a lot of NRL players. So like I was over in Australia for like a month, and I was at Wyong Roos, if you know who they are,
yeah,
and I was with like Ilona Vunakisi, and he's got a really good following as well. He was on like Ninja Warrior. He's been on a few stuff as well, so he's got a really good market. He's finished playing now, but he's still
yeah,
got a good market to be able to go onto them shows and stuff like that.
yeah, exactly. And I guess with him as well, it's the image too. And he did have a really good story, I believe, when he came into
Yeah,
Grady, because he's one of the last, I guess, players who still had at least over here, a full-time job, and also
yeah, yeah,
play in the NRL too, I believe. I'm not sure if he still
yeah,
does it, but he was a garbo, working on garbage trucks and that. So yeah, and again, yeah, it's the image as well. And he's a perfect example of that. So
yeah,
I think the players, at least over in the UK, can get there it's going to be interesting, at least for me, to see how Super League itself and how maybe the RFL itself goes about possibly getting on that social media train and trying to promote themselves a bit. When you were talking just before about social media and about building a brand, it reminded me of a story that I was actually told by someone who runs another podcast, an international rugby league podcast, Chasing Roos.
Yeah.
And he was actually telling me, so they're associated with Brazil Rugby League. And he was actually telling me how that all got started over there because a couple of guys, rugby union guys over in Brazil, were watching videos of Sonny Bill Williams and happened to get onto his rugby league highlights too and thought, wow, what's this game? So, social media, getting content out there, look what it can do. And now there's a Brazil Rugby League organization, and it all came from a couple of guys watching highlights of Sonny Bill Williams in the NRL.
That's all it is.
Crazy.
It's all about building that character, literally.
Yeah. So where are you looking to go in the future, I guess, in terms of social media specifically, and your YouTube channel, your Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, because I know you're heavily involved in trying to build those platforms. So I guess, what does the future hold for that side of your life? And how do you see it all playing out?
I'll be honest with you, like, the main reason for all this is just to try and motivate people to get into sports. Because, like I said, I've played rugby for 4 years professionally. Well, I've been involved in rugby for 4 years, and then I made my debut when I was 20. But what I'm trying to do is like motivate younger people, like even in good areas and also in deprived areas, that like it's not too late to make it. Because like I started playing rugby at 18. Like I've obviously like 6 or 7, I played it, but then stopped for age and then started again at 18. But I'm just goes to show that obviously if you just put the work in, like you can make it. Do you know what I mean? No matter where you are, no matter where you're from, and that's what I'm trying to do. Try to get the message out there for like people to just try and put the work in and just try and work as hard as possible, along with the education as well. Because obviously I'm like a big advocate on education. I've just finished my university course now, so as long as you've got that in the backup, like there's nothing stopping you from like obviously reaching your potential. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm trying to get out there as well, and try and like motivate other people to like be the best it can be, really.
Yeah, and I believe over the past few months too, you've actually done some modeling work with a couple of brands. Canterbury is the one specifically that I've seen. First of all, what's all that been like, that process of repping those brands and being a part of their advertising? And is that something that you'll continue to do in the future?
Yeah, I've got a really good relationship with Canterbury at the moment, so I'm really enjoying it. So what they're trying to do is similar to me as well. They're just trying to grow the game of rugby and like try to look at different areas and try to just motivate people to get out there. So I'm really a big advocate on that, and I really want to obviously try and get as much people out there to just like work if they want to do something, no matter what, even if it's rugby, if it's tennis, anything, just to like get out there and work and just believe in themselves, really. Because there's a lot of like misconceptions where like I'm 20 years old and it's too late now. Do you know what I mean? But I want to try and change that persona now and try and obviously get people out there to just like believe in themselves and like obviously just try and obviously even to just get to county level. Do you know what I mean? Like just to try and like work hard and just achieve the goals, really.
Yeah, well,
I feel like these brands will just obviously help with that. Like Canterbury is a big advocate on that. Like that's what they're aiming to do.
Yeah, well, I remember when I was going back a couple of days ago and I was looking through and I saw the Canterbury shoot you did, and I actually went onto Canterbury's Facebook page that uploaded um, the model shots of you, I guess we could say. And I had a look at their Facebook page and they've got hundreds of thousands of likes. So that's going back again to that promoting the brand thing. You're now recently retired rugby league player, but still as a rugby league player in the UK, right? How many players over in the UK are getting that exposure through doing these brand deals? More players, I guess, over in the UK should be following your footsteps and trying to get these opportunities, I guess, not just for them, but to sort of grow rugby league. Hey, he's rugby league player Jacob Smillie in this photo shoot. and hundreds of thousands of people could possibly see it, and they'll think, "Oh, what's this rugby league game?" Or, "Oh, I'll check out his highlights." They check out your highlights, and then they say, "Oh, what team does he play for? Look at the team he play," and it could
Yeah.
spiral from there. So
Yeah, definitely. And even like, because I've been involved with Pro Direct Rugby as well, and
yeah,
that's a more like a rugby union brand as well, isn't it? So that's also a good thing for the league. Like, obviously, it's just try and get it out there. So there's different avenues what they can go down. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's different ways of like trying to promote themselves. But it's definitely a really good thing. Like, I'm always about the first protocol is obviously you put your work in. I train hard. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's your first protocol, to put your work in, be the best player you can be, focus on your craft. That's first and foremost. But then secondly, you also want to obviously just grow that brand, you know what I mean, on the side as well. So then when you finish playing, you've got something. So like I was looking at something yesterday actually. So I do a lot of research. So you look at like Tom Brady, for example. He works hard, and as you know, like he's won everything there is to win. But then he's got his brand, he's got his T12 brand on the side. So then when he finishes, he's got that to fall back on. You look at the Dwayne The Rock Johnson, like first he was in the CFL, went to the WWE, branded himself from there, but then he wanted to like establish himself even more, so he went into acting, and that built his name. So when he went back to wrestling, it made wrestling even bigger. That's what his plan was, like to make wrestling even bigger from going to acting to wrestling. So then when he thought that mission was done, he went back to his acting. So then he can just retire now, and it's The Rock, isn't it? It's Dwayne The Rock Johnson. So that's his brand right there.
and he's got his own tequila now, I'm pretty sure as well, and I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that's doing pretty good. So that's another form of branding as well, getting that product out. It's funny you bring up him as a wrestler going to acting and then coming back to wrestling and sort of making it bigger for it, because growing up, still to this day, probably my favorite wrestling match of all time would have been the Rock versus John Cena match at WrestleMania when the Rock
oh
came
yeah.
back and versus
First or
John Cena.
second?
The first one, that because that was the one that they had like a year-long build. I was like 12 at the
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
and me and my friend, because we used to watch it, and everyone was going for The Rock, and they announced it, and for the whole year, all the fans were supporting The Rock, and we're like, hang on, John Cena's our guy. Like, surely he's going to win, and he'll beat The Rock. He didn't on that occasion, I don't think. But yeah, it's just sort of the build up and anticipation, and it probably would not have been as big if
Yeah,
The
exactly.
Rock hadn't gone to
To acting.
Hollywood. Yeah,
Yeah,
which, speaking of John Cena, he's now done as well, and he's only
yeah,
gonna build a
exactly.
bigger brand for himself, and, man, there's just so many examples we can think.
Like you can say like it's massive. Like people might say, "Oh yeah, WWE is massive. Acting's massive compared to the league." But I'm not saying to be big as that. But what I'm saying is like
Yeah.
maybe it could like just elevate even more. Do you know what I mean? Just by doing that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly, and let's just say you go and do whatever it is you're doing, you're really good at it, you have that, because 'cause you're building your brand. If you build a big enough brand and one day, who knows, you end up back in rugby league, you're probably going to bring some people over as well. So I guess it's the power of the brand for the individual players. It's the power of the brand and the pulling power um, of bringing in people who want to watch the game. And you can tell with the star players in the NRL and the popular players how they've sort of
Yeah,
built their brands in that, because they're the ones who are selling the tickets. If they're playing, then the crowds are selling out. Like, you look at all those Penrith players, and I guess you look at the impact it had on their side with all of those guys out, and then you see the impact that they had in State of Origin. I mean, playing in that Origin game alone, the performance that those blokes put on, their brand just got even higher. And
yeah, 100%. Yeah,
yeah, I see
like
it
I think when I
exciting.
knew Brian, he was on about I can't remember maybe 9,000, but now he's on like 100 odd thousand, and it just shows you
Yeah,
right there, doesn't it? Like crazy that. But then also, there's like the biggest example of like brand Sonny Bill Williams. Like
yeah,
he went all the way to Toronto and generated so much, you know what I mean, interest in the Super League from when he came there,
yeah,
and like interest in the All Blacks. Then he went to the Super League, so it did that this show. He's like a rugby league like David Beckham, isn't he? Really, let's be
yeah.
honest.
Well, he would have
So
to
yeah,
be the most influential player in rugby league history, purely
yeah.
because of his brand. I'll name another rugby league player who's got 1 million followers on Instagram. I can't think of anyone close to that.
Rugby league.
Yeah,
What was first enough?
Thurston, you know what? While we're talking here, I could quickly get it up because I'm really interested to
Yeah,
see what
because
Thurston's on. It'd be
I'll be
nowhere.
quite surprised if he's not on it.
It'd be nowhere near a mil, I don't think.
Check as well.
300,
300. Wow, I can't
374,000.
believe that. I can't believe that. And he's the goal, like in half, isn't he? But then just cut he's like the goal, let's be honest, in the halfback. So then we'll compare that to let's go with, for example, Kevin Durant.
Yeah. Up.
I can't say James. So, but
Well, I'll look up Kevin Durant. I have a feeling it's going to be a lot more. What's his name on Instagram? He's not coming up. I don't know.
but yeah.
But yeah, I get what you mean, and it's just night and
Or
day.
for example, James Harden, 11.5 million.
Yeah.
But then you got to think of the amount of people from each area. So in Australia, how big is it fans wise?
Oh, well, in the millions, low
Yeah.
millions, I'd say we'd have about a solid maybe 2 million fan base, because I know the NRL's Facebook page, I believe, has got over 1 million likes. So
All right. Yeah.
that's the big thing I'm sort of basing it off of. There's at least that many people who have liked the NRL's page. Yeah, I'd say around 2 million, if not a bit less. But yeah, and you know what, as well though, we bring up Jonathan Thurston as an example, and I guess the players of his generation. If they were just coming through today, but still had the
Oh yeah.
same career, by the end of their career, I feel like they would probably be up towards the millions, because that's just the way things are going. Like a Kaelin
100%.
Ponga will probably end up with maybe not too far off 1 million by the time
Yeah.
he finishes. And he's another guy who's, talk about branding.
Yeah.
But honestly, yeah, I would really like to see the players over in England follow suit. There are a couple of examples I've seen. I know Oliver Gildart's got his own podcast. I've listened to that a couple of times, which interestingly enough, it's always embedded in my head. He did an episode with Liam Marshall. I think it might have been the first episode. This is over a year ago now. And they were actually talking about the fact how they can play on the weekend, then walk down the street on a Monday. And at most, there'll be a couple of diehard fans that'll say, "Oh, you guys were crap on the weekend," and give them a bit of just a bit of banner or something. And they spoke about how, I guess, the media is over in the UK compared to over here in Australia, which I know it's a whole other kettle of fish. But I mean, I guess that's a bit of a blessing in disguise for rugby league not being as big over in the UK, because I guess generally the media is not as harsh. Like, I'm not sure if you've seen what George Williams has been copying over the past couple of weeks, or what John Bateman cops last year, but it seems for those guys it might have been a bit of a shock, because they hadn't really experienced it before, because they had been over in the UK. I remember a story, a fellow colleague was telling me they got the opportunity to interview Regan Grace end of 2019, and this is after Justin Holbrook had just signed with the Titans. And he had said in a previous interview, he was asked, this was by an Australian media outlet, because this is when they were over here for the World Cup Nines, and they asked Regan, and they were like, so would you like to, play for the Titans? And he said, yeah, I'd love to make a move to the NRL one day. And they took that quote and an article saying Regan Grace to the Titans confirmed or whatever. So when this guy I know went to interview him, and he said, first thing before you ask anything, I've not signed with the Titans. I've not been talking to the Titans. I don't know what happened there. But what this guy was telling me was that it was a bit of a shock to him, because Regan had said to him, he was like, if I said that to an outlet over in the UK, they'd take it at face value. Like, okay, he would like to play there one day, but not necessarily today. Whereas over here, we take that and we make it the headline the next day, and let's just say stretch the truth a little bit. So that probably comes into it as well.
Yeah, but like going off with like the first one as well, like to say like you were saying, then there's 2 million, well maybe a million or 2 million people, and he's got 300,000 followers, and like from when he was playing, social media wasn't big. I think that's really good. Honestly, I think
Yeah,
that's really good to say he's got that many followers, and obviously when did he start playing?
2002.
And Instagram, Facebook, and stuff didn't even exist, did it? So to say he's got all that in that space of time, I think that's what I'm saying. That's really good, and he does really good with his brand as well. I've seen him on them cooking shows with Friday. I've seen him on. He's on news all the time as well.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, he's still got his brand.
Well, speaking about brands, there's one player I want to quickly check up on. Okay, Kaelin Ponga currently has 333k Instagram followers. That's not too far off of JT, and he's probably got
Yeah,
10 years left. Looking at that now, if he plays his cards right, he's obviously got his own podcast too, and he does promotional stuff.
yeah,
He'll probably end up with about a million. And I guess that's sort of the trajectory of the star players. I just wanted to use him as an example because he's
yeah,
he's
definitely.
still got a while to go and he's already got well he'll probably end up surpassing JT by the end of this year, the way
Yeah.
things are going. So
Do you
yeah,
think he'll
man.
stay in the game, or do you think he'll go to Union?
At the moment he's contracted till the end of 2023, I
Oh,
believe.
right.
He might want to play in the 2027 Rugby World Cup. That might be his aim, sort of when he's going into his prime. But
Yeah,
the thing is, over here, I'm not sure how much club rugby, at least you've seen over here, because not because of COVID, there's been an Australian, a New Zealand, and a South African Super Rugby tournaments, but usually it's the three
yeah,
combined Super Rugby. The New Zealand based sides are far and away better than the Australian sides. And honestly, it would be very hard for him to get a starting spot, at least at fullback, in one of those club sides, let alone the All Blacks. He would probably be picked in a squad for the All Blacks, maybe just for a bit of that notoriety, but it would be
yeah,
very hard for him to start. So I think it's smart. Play until at least the end of 2023, reassess your options, then maybe give yourself a couple of years um, playing rugby and see how it goes. It'll be interesting to see how Roger Tuivasa-Sheck goes. Obviously signed with the
yeah, yeah,
Auckland Blues for next year, and I'd say
yeah.
he'd
He
have
did.
every intention of playing for the All Blacks in the 2023 World Cup. Um,
Yeah,
and the thing is, too, that's probably part of the reason why players like Kaelin Ponga and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck want to go there, because of how big the All Blacks brand is. Like, it's
hundred
arguably
percent.
up there as one of the biggest sporting brands on the planet. So,
Oh yeah, and you know what? It sits with your football brands and stuff like that.
yeah,
They're up there, at like one of the best, like literally, and like anybody that even like who doesn't even watch rugby knows who
yeah.
the All Blacks are. So 100%.
There would be there would genuinely be people in parts of the world, I think, who would know who the All Blacks are, but wouldn't know what rugby is. That's, at least in this day and age, how big they've become. And yeah, I can see why players would want to go over there, because one, that they could earn a lot of money, but two, if you become a star in the All Black side, you're up there in
Yeah,
terms of
definitely.
worldwide popularity. You won't have to worry about trying to get a million Instagram followers. I think you'd be over
Oh,
that by then.
yeah,
But
definitely.
yeah, so that it's actually interesting you brought up Kaelin Ponga and that going to the All Blacks, because it really does fit into what we've been talking about today. Because
Yeah,
yeah, a big reason as to why you'd want to go and play for the All Blacks is because it definitely helps your brand. And
yeah, definitely.
again, it feeds into clubs over here and teams over here, possibly, well, by over here I mean rugby league, sorry, both in the UK and Australia, trying to build their
Yeah,
brands and make players want to play for them, not just because they're a good team, but because they're a solid brand. Brisbane have been lacking in the past couple of years, obviously down towards the bottom of the ladder, but they're the only
yeah,
team I can really think of who's had that brand power. um, I believe, well, they are still the NRL's biggest brand in terms of the money that they make and
you
the
think?
attendance
Adam?
that they get. Oh,
All
well,
right.
yeah, I believe they're the only team to consistently turn over a profit at the end of each. season for the past however long. And
Yeah.
up until 2019, pre-COVID, obviously COVID had its impact over here because we had no crowds and reduced crowds. But from 88 when they came into the competition to 2019, they averaged the highest attendance. It also helps that they're currently the only team in a major city as well. It's
Yeah.
sort of like
That's that amount of people, doesn't it?
it's comparable to Newcastle United in the Premier League.
Yeah.
They're up in Newcastle. I mean, their closest neighbours are Sunderland, who are now in
Totally.
League One. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's sort of how it's worked out for Brisbane.
Yeah, because I went to when I was over in Australia, I went to a few games. I went to Rabbitohs and Roosters game, and then I went to Rabbitohs and Panthers. And do you know what? There wasn't a lot of people at the well in like the Roosters and Rabbitohs game. There was quite a bit, but it wasn't like a sold out crowd. So what's the reason for that?
Well, part of it is the population. That is part of it. The thing is with Sydney too, there's a lot more to do in Sydney than there is to do in Brisbane or in
Yeah,
Melbourne. You know what I mean? There are other attractions. There are other things for people to do. I guess pricing doesn't help as well, but it's just a bunch of contributing factors. Look, and if a team's going well, they're going to get bigger crowds. I live in Penrith, and I've been in the midst of the Penrith fever over the past couple of years. And since we've gone back to full capacity, Penrith's been getting 20,000 in their 22,000 capacity stadium pretty much every week. Whereas
yeah,
you go back as short as 2019, you probably get an average of about 12,000. It yeah, it's a lot of contributing factors. It also doesn't help. Like, you're not going to fill out ANZ Stadium every week. It's only really going to be full to the brim for Origin
yeah,
and for the grand final. And there are a couple of exceptions in terms of annual fixtures, like the Eels and the Tigers play on Easter Monday every year.
yeah,
And without COVID restrictions, they usually get at least 30,000, maybe up to 50,000. Again, it's still an 80,000 seater stadium.
yeah,
And yeah, it's sort of like specific games, like a Roosters Rabbitohs game, they'll get a decent crowd, but still not 80,000 people.
no,
Only really turn out when it's the big games. And you know what? That also is sort of, I guess, I won't say the Australian sporting culture, because the AFL tend to get big crowds, but I guess it's
yeah,
just the New South Wales sporting culture, and people tend to prefer to watch from home. That's just
yeah,
how it is. We've gotten into that culture over here, because I've noticed as well, especially there's a big disconnect between rugby league fans in the UK and over here.
yeah,
As an Australian, I can say that I genuinely believe that the fans over in the UK, while there might not be as many of them, they're more passionate, definitely, and their passion's more on show. You know, turning up to games, fan groups coming together, singing, making an atmosphere, making the game sort of an event. Whereas over here, we'll cheer, we'll boo. That's about all you're going to get.
yeah.
We're very lackadaisical, put it that way. That
Yeah, that's
is
what I
just
noticed.
how it
Really,
is.
it was just pretty quiet. Really, it was just like a pantomime. Really, it was just like everyone would just sat there normally. Do you know what I mean? But then when you go to, for example, if you're up in like England, it's just lively. Do you know what I mean? Like you get chants, you get everything. But then Australia, but the only good thing about the good thing about Australia is though that the game is much faster. It's more intense, I think, and like it's just like when I watched it, it was just unreal. Like like Sam Burgess and stuff. Like it was really good. Like all the quality players. You've obviously Greg Inglis, Burgess brothers and stuff like that. And it was just like proper like just back to back search. Everything were just going fast. You know what I mean? So very entertaining. So just imagine if we took the English fans and brought them over to Australia. Just imagine the atmosphere you'd get with that. It'd just be unreal.
Yeah, it would be, but you know what? It'd probably scare, in a weird way, the Aussie fans a bit, because a lot of the time, so when I've seen people suggest that we should have maybe more active fan support and work out ways to bring about a bit more of an atmosphere, you will still get those people who say, why this isn't soccer, or why we're Australian. They feel like they shouldn't for some weird reason. And I guess over here there is a bit of that toxicity throughout the fandom where rugby league's always been a working class game. That's how it was created. And that's why I think a lot of people, especially sort of the older generations watching, are upset at the way it's evolving and it's growing, and they don't like players growing their brands or teams growing their brands, and they don't really like it expanding because subconsciously they don't think it's good enough to expand, because
Yeah,
it's always been this sort of working class sort of niche game for the workers. And
yeah,
it, it's hard to explain, but yeah, it's sort of subconsciously fans feel that way. So they're instantly in denial when there's any real suggestion of growth in any
yeah,
way, if you get what I mean. Like that there would genuinely be people who only want to see rugby league be played on the east coast of Australia and in the north of England, and that's it. And they don't want it. They think it's a bad thing if it expands in any way, shape, or form elsewhere, or if players get too big or too popular.
yeah.
It's it's nuts, man. Like there'd be people out there who probably, hopefully no one listening to this, I'd like to think I've got a pretty good and a good fan base, but there'd probably be people out there who heard that you've played for Jamaica and they'd think, oh, well, why is he playing for them? They're probably crap or something like that. And they don't think about the impact if Jamaican
Yeah.
rugby union or rugby league got popular,
Thing is
then
with
maybe start
like,
a
yeah,
domestic league, and that grows the game internationally. That's more eyes on the game. They don't think of that. They just think, no, the game's ours. We want it east coast of Australia, north of England. That's it. That's, yeah,
because you
man.
got to think like with Jamaica side, obviously like um on my dad's side, and my grandparents are from Jamaica, so that's why I wanted to always represent them as well.
Yeah,
And like mother's side of is Dominique, and that's that's a Caribbean island. So altogether, it's the Caribbean end of this. So I wanted to represent my Caribbean side, and like I just feel like growing the game over there would be something like unreal because I see a lot of the players there. Some of them are in poverty, some of them are like don't
yeah,
even know when they get the next meal and stuff. So I just feel like representing them was an honour because like it just obviously shows them that there's a way out of it. Do you know what I mean? There's like a way out to like, try and do something with yourself. Do you know what I mean? And try and get them out of like, some of the deprived areas. You know what I mean? So I just feel like it's a good opportunity. Like the rugby league team, obviously they're in the World Cup now. The union
yeah,
side, the seven side that I've been involved with, they've got the Olympics coming up as well. So there's big things going on with Jamaica rugby. You know what I mean? So like it's growing. So people should obviously be happy because it's not only like growing the game, it's getting them people out of them situations, getting them
yeah.
into a positive environment. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I'm trying to do myself, try to get people into that positive environment and try to just so they know that there's a way out of it. Do you know what I mean? And that's through sport.
Yeah. It's just unfortunately, I'd say your average punter over here in
Oh
Australia
yeah,
doesn't think about that and doesn't think about more than their bubble and what's going on here. And that's fine to an extent. But I do think that's changing. You know, generations coming through. And I do genuinely feel that the international game of rugby league is growing. And, you know, you bring up about how rugby union, Jamaican rugby league in Jamaica is growing.
yeah,
As now an ex-Jamaican international player, if you continue to grow, build your brand, you're able to sort of bring those guys up with you as well. I'm bringing this all back to growing your brand. You know what I mean? And because
yeah,
you've repped those
definitely, yeah.
guys, and you're obviously going to continue to rep them and support them as you grow. And it's just pulling each other up, helping each other
Yeah,
up, and
100%. Like
helping us
it's just
grow.
it's just like you look at the Jamaican athletes, you see, your Bolts, your Han Blakes, and then like I just feel like with like the Caribbean itself, it's just growing more and more. Do you know what I mean? With sports stuff and like that's what like players like some players I want to know just what like that's what they want to do, try and grow it in that area, and then obviously the Jamaicans or anyone in the Caribbean will say, oh look, they're doing this during the Olympics, during the World Cup. Like I want to try and get myself out of this situation because like in the Caribbean, a lot of some of the areas are just very deprived. So like it's like that's what I'm trying to do. Try like show them that there's obviously a way out, and then like if they're looking on TV and they're seeing them in the Olympics and stuff like that, they'll know that's what they have to do to try and get out of there, and then try and make a better life and be the best that they can be really, and just to motivate them.
Yeah, and you know what? Hearing that, there are probably some, to an extent, similarities that people in rugby league strong areas in the UK and Australia could probably associate with and probably should. I used to do a podcast for a bit with Ian Webster, former St Helens and Celtic Crusaders player back in
All right,
the
yeah,
early to mid 2000s, played hooker and then came over here. He was telling a story once on the podcast I was on with him about how when he was growing up, he grew up in Liverpool. He pretty
yeah,
much had the option of give everything you've got and become a professional rugby league player, deal drugs, or live in poverty. Those were his three options. And I guess the only way where it was feasible for him to have a good life was to
yeah,
become a professional rugby league player. And I was reminded of that when you were talking about how playing rugby league, in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, is going to give those people options, those people living in poverty options, and give them an opportunity maybe to break out of that poverty cycle.
yeah, definitely,
So
yeah,
I guess the comparisons we can make, from a Western country, a
yeah,
traditional, in Britain to Jamaica as well, and that opportunity can come about through rugby league, rugby union, through sports.
yeah.
So look
You
what
look at other
expanding our game
athletes
can
as
do.
well. Yeah, you look at other athletes like I know Jermaine Defoe. Like been talking to Jermaine Defoe for a bit now. So like he's got his foundation and he's obviously helping to like St. Lucia. If you've seen the documentary like a couple of years back. So he's obviously trying to develop like sport over there, but then also he's doing like charity work as well.
Yeah,
So I feel like that's a really good initiative because obviously like just helping people out really that's the main thing, just try to motivate people, do you know what I mean, and try and like even if it's something else, just trying to get them to do, to just have a positive impact, like because obviously he's one of, in my opinion, one of the best Premier League strikers, you know what I mean, so you just try to have that positive effect on them sort of people, do you know what I mean, and that's what I feel a lot of like athletes in that thing need to like try and just work towards. You like Marcus Rashford as well, he's doing the same thing with
yeah,
his like with the meals and stuff like that, so I just think it's really good, just making an impact in people's lives, really.
yeah, man. Well, you know what? It's been an awesome chat, to say the least, and I feel like we've covered some important stuff and we've had a really good conversation. And honestly, I think a lot of people will agree with what we're saying here. I think we've pretty much hit it on the mark. But before we finish up today, we've been talking about branding, been talking about social media, and I've been touching on your social media throughout the show. So I just want to
Yeah.
ask you now, before we finish up, where should people be going to find you? How can people support you as you build your brand, as well, towards this announcement that you've got coming about what you're doing in the
Yeah.
future later on in the year? So where do people need to go to follow you?
So my name on everything really. So I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and I'm also on YouTube, and they're all J Smiley. So JAYSMILLIE. And then that's my name for all my platforms. So I try and stay as active as possible. Obviously, show you my training and stuff like that. I try and advise a few people as much as I can, and then just obviously like just post all the stuff to try and obviously motivate people to go and train and stuff, and like trying to be the best, basically the best version of themselves that they can be. Really, I may not be a David Beckham's or anything as of yet, but I'm trying to obviously like I'm trying to grow my brand, but I'm trying to obviously like I'm trying to motivate people that I can, like as much motivate enough people as I can, really. So like obviously they can go out and do good things, really, and try and make the best out of their lives.
Jay, it's been an honor to chat to you this morning for me, this evening for you. Um, Again, guys, I have to reiterate, go and follow Jay on the socials, keep up with what he's doing, and
Cheers.
make sure you're following him to see what he's doing in the future, because I'm anticipating it as much as anybody. And last of all, thank you guys for listening. Before we head off, a quick word from our sponsor at Champ Mouthguards.